One of the best things to come out of Creed 3 is Damian Anderson, the newest villain in the Rocky Creed franchise. What makes Dame unique from previous opponents is that he's the first one that's truly personal to the protagonist before fighting them. For the same reason, he's a little more fleshed out compared to previous opponents except for Apollo Creed, and it really makes you understand him even if you don't agree with his tactics. What made him turn out this way? This is why Dame is deadly. Let's talk about his symbolism, fighting style, influences, and more. It should go without saying, but there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen Creed 3 yet, go watch that first and then come back. Let's do a recap on what we know about Dame so far. Feel free to skip to the next chapter if you want to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss some important details later on in the video. Before Adonis Johnson was adopted by Marianne Creed, he grew up with childhood friend Dame Anderson, who looked out for him as an older brother as they spent time together in a group home run by Leon, who physically abused the boys. In 2002, when the boys are teenagers, Adonis sneaks out and accompanies Dame to his match for the Regional Golden Gloves Championship for the Crenshaw District. Dame wins, resulting in them also winning a bet placed on Dame. Dame splits his winnings with Adonis, while Adonis gives him a ticket to the Rumble in the Jungle that belonged to Apollo. As the two stop at a corner store to get snacks, Adonis sees Leon and attacks him out of anger. Leon's friends jump in to help, however, Dame intervenes and pulls a gun on the group. The cops pull up, and while Adonis manages to get away, Dame is sent to prison because of prior arrest. Dame serves at least 18 years in prison and seeks Adonis outside of the Delphi gym once released. As the two catch up in the diner, Dame explains that he wants to resume his dream of boxing and become the world champion. Adonis sets him up with Little Duke, who doesn't think this is a good idea at first, but reluctantly agrees as no one wants to spar with Felix Chavez, the current champion who trains at their gym. Damian later comes over and meets Bianca and Amara, briefly mentioning the past that Adonis has yet to tell Bianca about. In the trophy room, Dame insists on getting a title shot, arguing that Adonis became a contender overnight, and if his father can take a chance on an underdog, so can he. During the next sparring session with Felix, Dame uses a dirty punch against Felix as he grows impatient and is told by Adonis to go cool off. At the label party, he puts on a front with Adonis and Bianca as he instructs his former prison friends to attack Victor Drago, who suffers a concussion and multiple fractures to his right arm and hand, leaving Felix without an opponent. Although Felix and Little Duke are against the idea of Dame as Drago's replacement, Adonis reminds them how his father did the same for Rocky Balboa. Felix ultimately agrees, and Dame is thrust into the title picture for his first professional fight. Dame resorts to using dirty tactics, severely injuring Felix and knocking him out in the third round to win the Unified Championship. However, Adonis soon confronts Dame for orchestrating the attack to put himself into the title picture, and things get heated as Damian accuses Adonis of abandoning him and that he no longer needs him. After Damian punches Adonis, some time passes and Dame calls into first take to insult Adonis, while also accepting his challenge for the world title. Although making a show of his training, Dame is ready for the fight as the two duke it out in the battle for Los Angeles. In the 12th round, after an evenly fought match, Dame at first knocks down Donnie with a vicious body shot, but Adonis turns the tide and knocks out Damian with Dame's favorite technique, the straight right. Dame receives an apology from Adonis after the fight, though Dame tells Donnie that it was never on him, we were just kids. Adonis also shares the same sentiment, and the two do their signature handshake, with Dame encouraging Adonis to go celebrate with his family. Let's talk about Dame's motivations and why his life turned out the way it did. More than likely due to the rough upbringing he and Adonis shared, Damian wanted to make a life for himself and turned to boxing as an opportunity to do so. After winning the Golden Gloves Championship, he expresses his desire for a big diamond to match his nickname, but is also willing to help those who helped him as he shares a cut of his winnings with Adonis. He also has a sense of pride for his lineage, as the Rumble in the Jungle ticket inspires him to fight in Africa, as Ali and Foreman did, and years later he compliments Adonis on being able to achieve this. Receiving the ticket, he lays out his plan and ambitions to Adonis. He wants to win nationals, win gold at the Olympics, and eventually turn professional. In the diner scene, we can tell that there's a bit of tension as the two catch up on who they are now, as the last time they saw each other they were just kids with hopes and dreams. Damian mentions that he wrote Adonis a few letters while he was in prison, though Adonis never received them. Not only do we find out that Marianne hid them from Adonis so he can move on from the life he once had, but this also caused Damian to think that Donnie abandoned him. He even sent back the Rumble in the Jungle ticket he held on to this entire time. This would also explain why he refuses Adonis' help at first, as he didn't come for a handout, and if Adonis didn't help him then, he did need it now, or at least until Adonis agrees to help him get trained as a boxer out of guilt. When I watched the scene where he visited the Creed mansion for the first time, you could tell that he was trying to be respectful to Bianca, but you can tell there was something slightly off about him. perhaps that he still carried some anger and resentment towards Adonis and the life he made for himself. Damian goes so far as to bring up details that Adonis never shared with Bianca, namely the Jeff and the bedbugs they had in their rooms at the home. It's almost as if he's reminding Donnie to never forget where he came from. This is further expanded upon as the two talk in the trophy room, as he mentions that Adonis is domesticated and traded it in for a suit, in a nice parallel to Mickey telling Rocky he got civilized. Because of all the time that he lost as he spent all of those years in a cell, he tells Adonis that he doesn't want a title shot, he needs it. The clock is ticking and he'll do whatever he can to get that shot. The first step is he subtly guilt trips Adonis, mentioning all the time he lost, how he didn't have a name, just a number, and that he is in a position to make him a contender with the snap of his fingers. Namely, because he became one that way, and he is now in the same position his father was in to do so, as Apollo took a chance on an underdog. When this doesn't work, or rather perceives it doesn't because he's impatient, he sends a message to Felix by giving him a dirty punch in the clinch that he is the best and isn't just another sparring partner to some chump. Although he takes Adonis' advice to cool off, he hatches Plan C by sneaking his friends from prison into the label party and ordering them to attack Victor Drago, recognizing what he looks like from the poster on the way home, and as Adonis points him out, as he talks to Bianca about not being able to live her dreams and have someone else sing your song, as he feels that way about Adonis. He also asked her previously how it felt to give up all that, as he's hungrier than he's ever been to become a professional boxer and couldn't relate, living by a do or die motto. In his fight with Felix, he uses all of the anger he has towards Adonis and the past to take it to Felix, absorbing all the hits thrown at him and even resorting to using dirty tactics, whatever it takes to achieve his goal. While he's successful, he doesn't account for Marianne holding the letters that he sent to Adonis all these years, including the picture of him and his accomplice. Now that he has the title, he no longer needs Adonis, now abandoning his brother as his brother abandoned him. To teach him a lesson for always running away, he even threatens to take everything from Adonis, even his family. Things get even more heated as Dame publicly calls into First Take and calls Adonis a fraud and a coward, going so far as to say Apollo would be ashamed of him. Now that Damian has the title, he makes a show of everything, showing off and surrounding himself with the attention he so desperately craved as a teenager. This also reflects in his championship entrance as he approaches the ring with confidence and swagger in comparison to where he walked determined to the ring before his match with Felix. The Battle of Los Angeles culminates in what is truly a personal battle. Damian uses all the anger and bad blood he's been holding in at that point to let it out in the fight, screaming in anger as he stands opposite Adonis. However, despite losing the fight, he still won. He simply did not want to be forgotten by his friend and younger brother. Adonis recognizes this and seeks him out to personally apologize, taking responsibility for never reaching out when he should have. Damian forgives him, though also takes accountability for his actions. It was his choice to pull the gun, and it was never on Adonis, to which Donnie replies that it wasn't on Dame either. They both made bad choices, but they were just kids. With all of that being said, Damian does possess redeeming qualities. The one thing we can say before the title gets in the way of the two is that Dame was loyal. He treated and looked out for Adonis as an older brother and mentor, as the two protected each other during their time in the group home and as teenagers. It's implied that Dame taught Adonis a lot of the boxing moves he knew, but also learned from him as well, as he listened to Adonis' advice before the Golden Gloves match. When he saw that Adonis was in danger, and although it was an extreme action, he still pulled out a weapon to protect him. It's just unfortunate that he already had a record at that point and was arrested. Even though he felt that he was abandoned by Adonis, he still supported him in some way behind bars. He watched every single public fight Adonis had, even applauding him for fighting in South Africa. It can be argued that this was also out of envy, but I still think deep down Damian was still proud of Adonis for everything that he accomplished. Even in his old age, you can't knock Dame's determination. He knew he had talent and wasn't afraid to prove it, whether that was through clean or dirty tactics. As Little Duke said, he's telling you who he is, believe him. Damian also shows appreciation and accepts Donnie's help as he tells him to come by the gym, despite refusing any sort of help beforehand. This appreciation is also shown when Adonis believes in him to still have champion material before his first sparring session with Felix, and even thanks him before the title fight. Although some of the visit is slightly uneasy when Dame comes over, nonetheless he is respectful to Amara and is proud of Adonis, joking that he went Hollywood, but that he came a long way from their time growing up together. Even after losing the championship, Dame subtly gives Adonis a look of respect as he leaves the ring. The locker room talk also expands upon this as again, he ultimately forgives Adonis and himself for how things turned out in the past. They made what they thought was the best choice at the time, whether it was the right thing to do or not. This is also the first time we see Dame truly emotional at any point in the film, with tears rolling down his face as you can tell he appreciates Adonis apologizing and still considers him a close friend. Damian accepts fault for his actions, but also wants Adonis to continue to live the life he made for himself, encouraging him to go and see everyone waiting on him, calling Adonis champ out of respect. Although I went more in depth on this in the What You Missed in Creed 3 video, let's talk about characters that influenced Dame's creation. The most notable influence would be Clubber Lang, who shares many similarities with Dame. Both were hungry contenders who previously served prison time and were noted for their strength. While I would say Clubber was viler with his trash talk, Dame certainly had some too in his matches with both Felix and Adonis. Dame lives and trains alone when he's not at Delphi, something that Clubber claimed he did, which was true as it was shown on screen. In one of my favorite parallels, when Dame becomes champion, he becomes the opposite of what Clubber was and makes his training a show like Rocky Balboa would. Both have similar attires when they box, though Clubber wore black trunks with white trim in his rematch with Rocky. Ironically, both would lose their title thanks to the involvement of a Creed. I'd even go so far as to say that in some angles, you can see Dame almost have a frohawk that would be a nice subtle nod to Clubber Lang. Another notable influence would be Tommy Gunn, as both he and Dame would seek out a former world champion to get training at their gym and seek the championship for themselves. Dame was focused on the title and success just as much as Tommy was, and while it was George Washington Duke, a promoter who came in and tore the relationship between Tommy and Balboa, Dame would abandon Creed Athletics, the promoter, after becoming champion. Tommy, like Clubber and Dame, would also fight for the title while wearing black trunks, though they had white trim as well. Dame and Tommy were also famous for not taking things easy with their sparring partners and were overly aggressive due to the anger from their past. Dame, like Ivan Drago, would also take out a world champion, or former in Ivan's case, though Felix would survive this fight. I think it's also worth mentioning that Damian gives off almost a Mike Tyson aura with some of his movements and raw power, not to mention again the similar color scheme of the trunks. However, one notable inspiration we can't overlook is Rocky Balboa, as Dame's story is a dark twist on how Rocky became a contender. Because of an injury to the original opponent that was either about to fight a Creed or part of a fight promoted by a Creed, they were able to thrust into the title picture based on chance. The difference is that Dame underhandedly put himself in that position, while Rocky just happened to be chosen by Apollo. Let's talk about Damian's fighting style. Despite his age, Damian is strong, as his power is underestimated by Felix Chavez, who, despite being the world champion, is thrown off guard by this, and this power also allows him to be evenly matched with Adonis in their fight. Dame can also easily take equal amounts of punishment, as he takes some of the best shots from both Adonis and Felix in the fights, and isn't knocked down until the last round of the fight with Donnie. He's also a student of the game, as he studies tactics, techniques, and his opponents, using whatever opportunity he can to capitalize and attack a fighter's weak points. In the franchise, Dame is perhaps the dirtiest fighter we've seen yet. He uses near borderline illegal tactics like punching Felix's shoulder and underneath his arm to take away the power from his left arm, to tactics that are illegal like elbow and knee strikes. He also pulls a Victor Drago in the training montage by holding one of his sparring partner's arms in a clinch and pummels him with the other. Similar to Clubber Lang, he is a master of trash talking, but he doesn't let this get in the way of his focus and stays determined. Unlike Clubber, Damian has solid conditioning, possibly due to the amount of calisthenics he did in prison, as he mentioned to Adonis that he kept himself in shape this entire time, and also knows how to move and dodge, unlike the famous Balboa face defense. Because of his strength, Dame favors clinches, as sometimes he follows this up with his favorite punch, the straight right, which won him both the Golden Gloves and Unified World Championships. He also likes to trap his opponents against the ropes and corners, forcing his opponent to be on defense by putting pressure on them with his strong punches. Another notable tactic that Diamond Dame uses is that he feints his punches so his opponent can swing and miss, as he follows up with counter punches. However, he does have some weaknesses. Like Clubber, he does have a habit of throwing power punches, though at least he knows how to jab, which can drain his stamina. The anger he uses as fuel can also cause him to be unfocused, as Adonis was able to take advantage of this in the final round of their fight. Speaking of which, how did Adonis beat Dame? The number one factor is that Adonis, under Little Duke's advice, turned his flaws into strengths. Adonis knows Dame better than anyone and knew he would study all of the fights, as he admitted doing so in the diner scene, to find any weakness that Adonis would have, and possibly try to re-aggravate an old injury. To prevent this, Adonis would have to shake the rust off and put himself through a grueling training regimen, including pulling a small plane, working on his core, striking a tree to strengthen his hands, running with a weighted vest, and even sparring with Victor Drago, a former opponent who also forced Adonis to train even harder for the second match they had, to remind himself the types of punches he would receive from Damian. The second part of this is that Adonis wasn't intimidated by Damian and was prepared for his antics. Now, Damian didn't intimidate his opponents outright in the manner Mike Tyson would, but he would play some long-term mind games with his opponents, whether this was through dirty tactics or previous knowledge of his opponent's fighting style. Dame was able to take away the power from Felix's left arm and also knew what to expect from him thanks to sparring with him. Damian's power would also intimidate Felix, as he didn't have an answer for some of the punches Dame threw and even fell to the clinch into straight right combo. However, Adonis knew that Dame would try these tactics and even called Dame out on it, telling him that he needed to rely on these, shifting the mind games back onto Damian. Now, had Adonis still focused on the past, as we saw during the first half of the training montage, more than likely Dame would have won the fight. The final part of the puzzle on how Adonis beat Dame is that he used his own punch against him. Adonis knew that Damian favored the straight right and recognized when he tried to use his punch after the clinch. Adonis broke the clinch and quickly put Dame on the defensive with a steady rhythm of punches to force Dame to anticipate these and then use the straight right at the perfect opportunity. Let's talk about the symbolism behind Damian's character. Dame typically wears black or darker colors in almost all of the scenes he's in. It's believed that some of the psychology of the color black can represent power, mystery, sophistication, and the unknown. It can also be authoritative and evoke strong emotions. This aligns with Dame's character, notably the struggles of his past and how he craves fame and success. In the training montage and final fight, it's implied that Adonis and Dame are yin and yang given their contrast in attire. Dame would represent yin, which some of the appropriate associations for his character would include cold, earth, negativity, shadows and darkness, nighttime, and destruction. Adonis would represent yang, and the qualities of fast, focus, hot and warm, given his training in the outdoors again, fire, positivity, light, and creation. We see the two friends as two sides of the same coin. As Adonis goes to leave the locker room, Dame does the same, and it seems like they're staring at the wall between them. In the second half of the montage, the two also start to do the same exercises, though in slightly different manners and settings. It'd also be no secret that Dame wearing black trunks in his fight against Felix would also represent him being a dark horse, a candidate whom little is known about, but who unexpectedly wins or succeeds. When he goes back to his house, or what seems to be a motel, to train after sparring with Felix for the second time, you can feel there's a certain tightness to the shots in the room, almost as if he's back in his cell again and doing what he can to pass the time and work towards his dream. Another note about the cinematography surrounding Dame is that the lighting surrounding his character is typically dark as well, as if he's in the shadows. Notably during the label party when he talks to Bianca, you can see there's more lighting on Bianca's face, as a nice nod to his true intentions of being in the dark while his friends attack Victor. This is also seen in the locker room and when he calls into First Take. In the final scene he's in with Adonis in the locker room, the light surrounding the locker he sits in is noticeably brighter when Adonis leaves after their talk, as he's finally in the light, so to speak. When he makes his entrance both times in the film against Felix and Adonis, the lights that display both times are green. Green can symbolize money, growth, and envy. This would be fitting given how he becomes champion and then walks out as a champion at the top of his game. That would explain why his championship trunks have a slightly dark green tint to them, as you can see briefly when the light shines on him. Speaking of his trunks, they are adorned with diamonds that have the Pan-African colors, noting the pride he has in his ancestry. Obviously, the diamond is a nod to his nickname Diamond, but this also represents strength and invincibility, and the fact that a diamond is a coal formed under pressure is very appropriate for Damian. It should also go without saying, but the fight between the two as the stadium becomes empty just shows how much of a personal battle it is between Adonis and Dame. Lastly, the same weapon that got Dame in trouble is the same one he takes from his associate on the beach and puts away, showing some things never change. Here are my thoughts on Damian and what we can expect to see from him in the future. I thought Dame was a breath of fresh air, as again, this is the first time we've had an opponent who truly was personal to either Rocky or Adonis. Creed 3 was a great example of how the past can sometimes come back to haunt you and how you need to confront it in order to move forward. Although Dame used tactics to get what he wanted to try to beat the clock, you couldn't help but understand his dream and even sympathize with him for a tiny bit. He was also mature enough to take accountability for the choices he made when he made amends with Adonis, putting his character with the likes of Apollo, Ivan, and Victor in terms of character growth. I think there might be a little bit more story to tell in Creed 4, especially now that I can't see Dame moving forward without having an answer for what he did to both Victor and Felix. Seeing Victor versus Dame would be interesting, as it'd be as close as we'd get to a Clubber Lang versus Ivan Drago fight. This was also the first time I ever saw Jonathan Majors in any of his roles, and I thought he knocked it out of the park. His character was believable, and while it's unfortunate if the recent controversial allegations against the actor are true, which we may never know the full story at this point, he brought Dame to life and did an excellent job doing so. Only time will tell what will happen to Diamond Dame Anderson. Speaking of Jonathan Majors, both he and Michael B. Jordan killed it as they were in phenomenal shape for the film. Part of the training is also eating and making sure you're getting that protein in, and for someone like me, meal prep is something else that takes time away from either lifting in the weight room or working on videos. Thankfully, Factor helped me get that time back. There are plenty of different options to choose from based on what you want to eat, such as keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, and vegan and veggie options. I was surprised when I received my package as I thought it was just going to be a bunch of frozen food showing up, but no, it was fresh and ready to go. As you can see by my amateur camera work here, I was able to just pop the film, throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and enjoy. I'm also a big fan of spicy food, so the spicy poblano beef bowl was a must try, and it was awesome. Factor sending meals straight to my door also helps me get back time to work on Creed videos by saving trips to the grocery store, and for someone like myself that's focused on delivering these videos, time is everything. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code STRIFE50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Again, Factor75.com or click the link in the description and use code STRIFE50 to get 50% off your first box. And a special thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Let me know what you guys think down below. What makes Dame deadly? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, and comment, as these all help my channel grow. Be sure to check out and subscribe to my gaming channel. I'm trying to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, and supporting this channel also helps me support my main channel. Keep up with me on my socials via Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for watching, stay beautiful, stay awesome, and we'll catch you around next time.